Now let's go to today's post in news. France approves digital tax on American tech giants, defying U.S. trade threat.
CHILLIFLAKE 44 says Limeri said the tax would target some 30 companies, mostly American but also Chinese, German, Spanish and British, as well as one French. FIRM https://www.cnbc.com/2019/07/11/us-2-French-tech-tax.html.
Same union says in a statement, Amazon said the French tax is poorly constructed and discriminatory, adding it will cause significant harm to American and French consumers alike. The naughty monkey says France is sovereign, and France decides its own tax rules, and this will continue to be the case. France's finance minister Bruno Le Maire said in a statement, "Can't argue with that. Frankly, I'm glad that someone is attempting to close all these tax loopholes that tech companies can use." Bosch says, why wouldn't you tax companies that do business in your country?
Feckanger says, to be honest, this is just a patch. What really is necessary is worldwide tax rules to tax earnings where they are made. You sell stuff in Germany, you're going to pay the taxes on the profit made there, and not deduct licensing fees because it's a subsidiary, then pay taxes on everything you've made worldwide in Luxembourg or the Cayman Islands.
THROWINGITALLAWAY 33 says, why only digital companies? Plenty of other large corporations evade the shit out of taxes. What about large banks, who harm consumers just as much? This is good, but the scope is so limited, it just makes them seem angry at Facebook and Google.
Now let's go to today's post in news. California's stem cell research fund dries up.
Ivibabavi says, do they publicly release how the original funds were spent?
Arthur Gang says, gross, don't let those cells dry out, they're expensive AF.
Clown World says, well, they just passed a bill giving illegal aliens healthcare, so it's not like the money isn't there, they just have other priorities.
Ninja Nerd 99 says, got to pay for healthcare for illegal aliens somehow.
420 Smakuyedvich says, just make a new tax, it's simple. Lazy Goran says, should have used some of that SF to LA train money they got from the Fed. Oh wait, they're giving that to illegals.
Now let's go to today's post in news. China billionaire reportedly arrested over child molestation.
Thought First says, arresting billionaire pedis is a trend I'd like to see continue worldwide. I'm tired of these people being lawless just because they have a nice portfolio.
Minerina de Carino says he is good as dead. Public execution next month.
Cheoslok says, why am I not surprised, especially after the Epstein case? Mookie Magic says, there's an international cabal of powerful pedophiles in politics, sports, entertainment and religion. Child molestation, child rape, child sacrifice. These are the games the power players play.
Xenomorph says, this and Epstein in the same league? Brace yourself for the QAnon boys getting real fired up.
Samshin says, what a backwards culture. This would never happen in the West.
Now let's go to today's post in news. Former USC gynecologist allegedly made sex videos of young women he lured into foreign hotel rooms. Prosecutor says. JLBISC 1981 says, this is where we start giving these predators the harshest punishment allowed by the law.
BK7 says, she said Tyndall understood Asian culture and knew an Asian patient's reputation. WTF. That's so predatory. This guy needs to get life and have all his assets liquefied.
Landon says, I don't understand where you need to be mentally and morally to do this. How can you look at these little girls in the face and just molest them like this? String this pic up.
Response says, so Lauren, please be at the Hilton in Paris for your annual physical.
Purple-headed warrior says, some as young as 17, so CP then actually, not just assaults against young women.
Sopno says, I hope all these dudes in here remember this story when they're watching amateur porn later.
Now let's go to today's post in news. San Diego thieves spend Target gift cards loaded with Texas woman's life savings.
Nednabin says, my wife's grandmother almost fell for a similar scam after my wife explained the deal to her. She told them off. Imagine someone with Julia Child's accent saying, young man, I know what you're up to and you should be ashamed of yourself.
6i Actioner says I've been watching this guy on YouTube from time to time who basically gets back at these scammers by deleting their computer's files, which is all pretty funny. But an interesting part of those videos is hearing what these guys actually say and do trying to scam people. No way in hell would I fall for their bullshit, but I see how old people with no street smarts might. Theatre says she wasn't that old to fall for this stupid ass scam.
Scoville says a lady at my work nearly fell for something like this, but the store refused to sell her gift cards. Apparently this happens at least once a week at whatever store she went to.
Happy Politics says I work in financial crime investigation at a bank. We're not even a huge bank, and we have thousands of clients getting scammed in various ways every year. I don't know why this article is referring to this as an elaborate scam that reached San Diego County. This is a tech support scam, and as textbook as it gets. We try so hard to educate our clients about these things, but it sure feels like a losing battle sometimes, especially with tech support scams that prey on people's lack of technological knowledge.
Oham says a woman's life savings in Target gift cards? I don't even need to read the article.
Now let's go to today's post in news. Drivers stopped on an Atlanta interstate to grab $75,000 in cash that fell out of an armored truck.
Mac's wife says the exuberant videos that people posted as the cash danced in the air are now doubling as evidence. Police are checking social media video to find the drivers with sticky fingers. New rule, guys, if people are stopping to grab cash out of an armored truck, nobody take a video.
Mora Complete says we have plenty of social media video, some of which seems to have tag numbers, to follow up on, but we really want people to come in, turn in the money and go on about their life without worrying about when the police are coming to find them, said Sergeant Robert Parsons, a spokesman for the Dunwoody Police Department. That's the problem with everyone having phones and social media these days, can't get away with anything.
Willard Ritter says I find it somewhat amusing that my El Cheapo base model Subaru has a light on the dash to indicate if the hatch isn't securely latched, but an armored car apparently does not have such a simple device for the rear doors.
420-inch PDX says so the next time this happens, what you need to do is grab a certain dollar amount, set aside a small amount, then give the rest back to the cops. It's not like they're going to know you grabbed 000 versus 200. However, the tricky part afterwards is don't fucking brag about doing that on social media. Just quietly take someone out to a nice dinner a week or two after it happens, or buy something inconspicuous. Don't make it rain anywhere where someone will recognize you and you should be fine. Note: do not try any of this. If you do, I'm not responsible for anything bad that happens to you. YMMV.
Throwaway 12 lakhs 23,344 says this was obviously a planned distraction to block traffic and keep police busy. The real heist happened somewhere nearby, but we will never hear about it. Or maybe I've seen too many movies.
Diebstahlsicherung says only 75,000 fell out. I don't stop my car unless it's more than 000,000 on the road, and only because I don't want it to get stuck to my just polished car. Now let's go to today's post in news. Oil jumps above zero ahead of storm in Gulf of Mexico.
Handicap 123 says, but why is premium 4.20 here in California if the barrel used to be so much more and it was about that price per gallon? Face with big pleading eyes.
John Gilnich says thing about shale is that oil still has to be refined to make it into gasoline. That happens on the Texas Gulf Coast. Ever see Corpus Christi or the Port of Houston? Looks like fucking Blade Runner out there.
Jacob says seasonal weather is always a money grab. The oil companies act like oil is trickling into the states boat by boat, and every drop is more valuable when it delays a tanker. This is price gouging.
The Clumsy One says is oil in a great sweet spot for the U.S. $56 is the reported profit point for U.S. manufacturers to keep fracking operations up. I don't expect the U.S. to ever see $100 a barrel again, since we have a ton of wells ready to be turned though, and depending on geopolitics of course, A war would likely case it to creep up there.
TOPHERUS Maximus says crisis coming, let's raise prices, we'll just attribute it to extra costs and limited availability, and pass them on to these dumb bastards. We have to do it fast now before the governor steps in and orders us to freeze prices to prevent gouging. Joke's on them because we already gouged.
Capitalist model says and the average oil price temporarily dropped when the two oil tankers were attacked outside the Gulf of Oman, insignificantly.
Now let's go to today's post in news. Google employees are systematically listening to audio files recorded by Google Home smart speakers and the Google Assistant smartphone app.
Fog in the Dog says it is true that Google does not eavesdrop directly, but VRTNWS discovered that it is listening in. Or rather, that it lets people listen in. We let ordinary Flemish people hear some of their own recordings. This is undeniably my own voice, says one man, clearly surprised. A couple from Westminster immediately recognized the voice of their son and their grandchild. What did we do? VRTNWS was able to listen to more than 1,000 excerpts recorded via Google Assistant. In these recordings we could clearly hear addresses and other sensitive information. This made it easy for us to find the people involved and confront them with the audio recordings. How are we supposed to read this? It sounds like either Google gave them a batch of recordings, else they figured out a security vulnerability and grabbed them themselves. Either way, it's very concerning.
Bike Idaho says no shit. How do you think they improve the voice recognition?
Street Shenanigans says every smart assistant provider, ever, these devices record what you say after you say the wake word for a few seconds. Every internet tech expert, I just don't get why you would let a company bug your house. Variable Veritas says dumb, eavesdropping in the first line of the story. When you speak to a smart device, you kind of assume someone is listening to it. I mean, I curse my Siri out something fierce after she gets something easy wrong like 3 times on a row and I'm trying to stay hands-free in the car. That's for the engineers, not for the voice recognition program.
Blind Throwaway 1234 says I still don't get why people would pay money to let corporations bug their houses. So ridiculous. Call Clipspringer says since they are listening to everything, can I get some receipts for when I'm arguing with my wife about who said what? I would love to be able to say, hey Google, who was raising their voice when they said they were being calm? Now let's go to today's post in news. Parents arrested for not taking 1-year-old son to medical appointments after liver transplant.
Bad Ashley says imagine your child dies and you, while still in the midst of grief and wishing desperately to have them back, decide to donate their organs, only to have the recipient's parents risk the donation and their own child's life through carelessness.
Greffy Dufo says I'm a liver transplant recipient myself. Fuck these lazy ass parents. They want their child to die of medical neglect.
SP440RSE says court documents say the boy's parents also didn't give their son his medications, which transplant experts say is critical after the surgery and yes, those are the medications that prevent the recipient's body from attacking, rejecting, and destroying the donor liver. This is horrendous child neglect. As a physician who takes care of patients after liver transplants on a regular basis, I'm appalled at these parents' behavior and glad their kids were taken away.
MS Kim says hopefully the parents lose custody altogether. Doctors are more than clear about the need for lifetime care and medical oversight for transplant patients, so there is no excuse for these parents not to understand how important continuing care for their kid was.
Parisian 2288 says if the doctor is always held liable, why shouldn't the parents? I work in pediatrics and it's horrible, the people that do not keep up with treatment, crazy the amount of parents that do not follow treatment. The excuses are that they forget, don't want to fight the child, or do not believe in the treatment. I do not know how many times we have noted in the medical record that the parents are non-compliant. This is the right thing to do in my opinion. Bob Janus says why can't we do the same to anti-vaxxers?
Now let's go to today's post in news. Judge orders union to fine and discipline American Airlines mechanics who cause delays and cancellations business.
Mark Von Schief says one of the worst things I can think of is to have a bunch of pissed off mechanics getting my flight ready to go.
Squidward Woodward says I can't see how this could possibly go wrong.
Ferrender says I'm sure mechanics scared of getting fined will do their work correctly. Mookid says as an airline employee, it is rather difficult to get to a point where you can strike or cause other disruptions during a labor dispute due to the Railway Labor Act, which the article doesn't mention and does include airline workers. You have to go through a lot of steps, I'm told, before you can even get to strike territory.
Expensive Burn says I, too, initially thought this was terrible, but I guess I'll be the first person to comment that read the article. American Airlines claimed that their mechanics are working intentionally slowly and refusing overtime. The judge told the union that they have to discourage this type of activity and, if a specific person is identified, take action. So far American Airlines has not named an individual as engaging in this. American Airlines has accused the union of a coordinated effort to turn down overtime work, off-site assignments and not having planes ready when they need to take off the next morning, all to pressure the company during contract negotiations reaching back 4 years.
Die Milkweed says so. Contract negotiations have been going on for 4 years and management cannot figure out why morale is so low that nobody will take overtime or off-site requests.
Now let's go to today's post in news. Man hit by wrong way scooter rider goes to court to find suspect.
Orchasm says hope the rider gets caught. Fuck people who constantly salmon.
Talkshaft says it was the Humboldt Park Gator after a few pints. Be More Nope says the scooters are honestly a great addition to a city's transportation options, but the problem is most riders ignore the laws. I use them where I'm supposed to, in the city, the bike lanes, and follow the laws, including wearing a helmet. But I constantly have to dodge people going the wrong way and see more idiots going full speed down the sidewalk, where the speed limit for scooters is 6 miles per hour and not the 15 they are going, and blindly zipping across actual traffic. I hope cops start ticketing these idiots en masse so they stop doing this crap and making it seem like the scooters themselves are the problem.
J3P3D3 says official CDC says 10% of all scooter-related injuries that end up in the hospital are people who were not riding the scooter.
Widespread Hammock says these scooters are the fucking worst here in Atlanta. I have zero sympathy for anyone hurt or killed on one.
Now let's go to today's post in news. Louisiana declares state of emergency as storm develops into hurricane.
Deep Corner says the entire city flooded this morning, without the hurricane even landing. Many spots along the levees are under mandatory evacuation as the river was already at flood stage without the storm surge. It's gonna be a wild ride for everybody in NOLA. Most of my friends already got 8 inches of water inside their homes this morning.
ACNLGL 2016 says ugh, we have to hit Walmart at some point to grab a few supplies. Gonna get soggy.
Agamemnon 314 says as we seem to insist on New Orleans staying overall, let's start slowly floating the buildings, and dropping in foundations. Make it a new Venice situation.
Pretty Gay Pegasus says look at what shit I done woke up to. I didn't even know I was in danger.
Zachary says I am so goddamn tired of water in my goddamn house.
1PRCNTOF2 says someone call the Rat King.
Now let's go to today's post in news. Ford new Focus, Fiesta models had flawed transmission, sold them anyway.
Giraffe Poker says well that explains why my car acts like a piece of shit, may experience a shudder shake on startup or when slowing to a stop. Exactly what I experience when I drive the fucker.
Mark HFX says I'm a transmission specialist. Avoid these cars, there are long periods where clutches are not available with no courtesy vehicles. Many techs have zero clue how to repair, set up and program these systems. Poison.
Hasselhoff says Ford's position has consistently been that even if the cars slip out of gear while people are driving and they must coast to the side of the road, the cars don't pose a safety risk because power steering, brakes, passenger restraints and other functions continue to work. Its statement to the Free Press for this story reiterated that vehicles in which DPS-6 was installed were and remain safe. Ford, sure it's broken, but the brakes still work. And if those don't work, your seatbelt still works. Xenomorph says for the uninitiated, the Fight Club scene that everyone in this thread will be referencing.
The shady guy says Ford ended up buying my girlfriend's Focus because the transmission had been replaced and or overhauled 4 times. The process was very difficult and I still don't know if she has all of the money back from them yet, despite it being part of a court-ordered arbitration program. Her grandfather built Ford cars and she would have been a lifelong Ford customer. It was her 3rd Ford, I think. Not anymore.
By Winning 3 says my girlfriend went through 5 transmissions in her Focus before she just said, fuck it, and got rid of it.
Now let's go to today's post in news. After 119 exonerated, former Jackson County Deputy Zach Wester arrested in drug planting probe.
Netapet says it should be noted the whistleblower in this case was a prosecutor who was forced to resign and is suing because of it, not anyone in the police department. Her story is interesting to read. She basically lost all trust in law enforcement and claims the corruption ran all the way through the state prosecutor's office where she was harassed and ridiculed for criticizing how these cases were dealt with. Prosecutors systematically sought quick plea deals to avoid the evidence being presented in court because they knew it was fabricated. Everyone in the department, including supervisors, as well as the DA's office had to know what was going on the whole time. There is no way one officer could have that many drug arrests, from simple traffic stops nonetheless, and not raise flags. He manipulated body cam footage whenever he could and no one noticed. Hundreds of complaints were filed against him and no one noticed. No one bothered to check his body cam footage ever. This is not a one-man job. This is not one bad apple. That entire department and DA's office is full of crooks and liars and they all deserve to be in jail. Edit. Here's the article on the whistleblower since a lot of people are asking https://www.tallahassee.com. Story News, the 29th of September 2018. Prosecutor who sparked Jackson drug planting probe resigns. Whistleblower /1,441,015,002 UTM source equals share and UTM medium equals ISAP.
Double says what a sadistic monster to willfully ruin people's lives.
Chocolatebumslang says up to 119 lives ruined. This should be a life sentence.
Aloha Warrior 35 says hope he gets a long sentence.
Insect Shelf 3 says 119 exonerated 119 what the fuck.
The Last American says he should serve the combined length of every year the innocent people he framed did, and then maybe a few more on top.
Now let's go to today's post in news. Man sentenced to 615 years for sex crimes.
Cyberseeker says, will serve 615 years for those crimes. I'm betting he doesn't even do half of that.
Alias NKI says observe this, remember this sentence, when Epstein and his cronies are slapped on their wrists, if anything even comes from the trial. Edit. Whoa. Thanks. I think this is my first gilded post. Also fuck the 0.01%.
Blind Throwaway 1234 says 615 years for poor people, 6 months house arrest, community service for the wealthy. Why won't Epstein face the same punishment as another fellow American?
Cheaply Deep says peasant. Maybe he could get out 12 hours a day 6 days a week if he just stopped being poor. Face with rolling eyes, Naaman Broken says him in 2040, only 594 years to go.
Cool1 says obviously couldn't afford Epstein's lawyer firm or connections.
Now let's go to today's post in news. Suzanne Eaton murdered in Crete. Greek police say American scientists suffocated on work trip.
Strom41 says this is horrible. Last I read they thought she may have fell or had a medical emergency while jogging. I hope she will find justice and those who killed her are found.
SK33 Chalk says don't you hate when you go for a jog and you accidentally fall into a plastic bag and then accidentally suffocate and die? Worst accidental suicide ever. Yakov says predator laying in wait for some jogger to run by their lair, or is this something more nefarious?
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.
100% murder. Suzanne Eaton was found dead Monday on the island of Crete in a World War II bunker.